of all the stories and all the people you've interviewed, who, if you can think, is a really quite difficult question. Who do you think maybe surprised you the most by not being what you thought they might be when you interviewed them?
I'm tempted to say Lou Reed,
Okay.
although when I first walked into the interview room at the record company where I found Lou sitting, doing an incredibly impersonation of a black cloud of ill temper, um, he he was the Lou Reed I expected him to be.
Hmm.
For the first 20 minutes, there was nothing but a torrent of abuse.
Wow.
Lou at that time uh, was famous for eviscerating journalists. You know, he had legendarily had no time for them at all, and would be, you know, just downright rude and contemptuous and treat them really quite badly. So I had this huge barrage of abuse. But I thought, even if he doesn't say anything else and tells me to get out of the room after he's, you know, run the tempestuous course of this tirade, I'm still going to have, a bag full of stuff to write about, because the quotes was
Yeah.
so hilarious. He was just so hilarious. I was just really laughing.
Yeah.
And the longer I stood there, he was kind of looking at me rather quizzically, thinking, shouldn't he have run screaming from the room by now?
Hmm.
And at one point, he did sort of run out of steam a little.
Hmm.
And I took the opportunity to leap in and say something like, you know, is this Lou Reed being Lou Reed because this is what Lou Reed's really like? Or is it Lou Reed being the Lou Reed that Lou Reed expects people
Hmm.
expect him to be?
Yeah.
Is this a performance, or are you really this fucking nasty?
Hmm.
And he just laughed and said, sit down. And we sat down,
Hmm.
and he said, ask me a question. So I asked him a question. He said, asked him a question. I think I said, you know, if as Lou Reed, you hadn't been in the Velvet Underground, what would you have thought of Lou Reed in the Velvet
Wow. Good
Underground?
question.
And he said, oh, I would have loved Lou Reed in the Velvet Underground. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Lou Reed in the Velvet Underground was the greatest, you know. So flattery and being informed about the music of the Velvet Underground and his solo worked a treat. And he just completely softened up. Uh, Before going into the interview, I'd been given a list of questions, topics not to bring up with him.
Oh yeah.
They included the Velvet Underground. They included John Cale. They included Andy Warhol, David Bowie. Don't mention Transformer. For God's sake, don't mention Berlin. Don't mention Metal Machine music. I might as
What's
well have gone
left?
to
What's left?
I might as well have gone to interview somebody else. So
Yeah.
of course I disregarded those instructions and just
Yeah.
started asking him questions about, you know, everything I wanted to talk about. And there wasn't a single question that he didn't answer,
Hmm.
usually at considerable length. And at the end of the interview, uh, he asked me what I was doing the following week.
Hmm.
And I said that would be up to, you know, the editors at Melody Maker, you know, wherever they sent me, I'd probably end up. And he said, oh, forget about them. You're coming on the road with me. I'm starting a European tour in Sweden next week, in Stockholm. Be there. And I was. They sent a car around for me, uh, drove me to Heathrow. I flew to Stockholm. There was a car waiting for me, drove me there to the hotel. Lou was in the lobby of the hotel going, where have you been? You're late. He said, throw your bags over there. And we
Yeah.
went out. And well,
An
that was a
interesting
big,
night to see
it,
there
it,
then.
it, it was the beginning of 4 or 5 exceptional days.
Wow.
And he was beautiful. He was just so friendly.
Hmm. That's a fantastic story, that actually. You know, how he turned that on its head. What a great question to ask him as well. I don't know. I don't know what the hell I would have asked if it was under pressure, you know.
Well, you know, inspiration comes from desperation.
Yeah. So looking back in the first book as well, a couple of other characters he mentioned about Elvis Costello. I don't know. I haven't read through the second one yet. I think there's more references to Sting. I think Bryan Ferry comes up again. Now, neither of those came out the first book particularly well. Without any
Uh,
spoilers, any changes in direction?
well, if you think they didn't come out of the first book very well,
Okay.
I suspect your reaction will be the same to the piece.
So I'm glad you said that, which makes me look forward to reading it even more. Yeah, yeah, there's some great sting stuff in that first one. Peter Cook, of course, Peter Cook is in this second one, so that's it's a different one, isn't it?
Yes, well, they had the Derek and Clive albums
Oh,
out,
of course, yeah,
and
brilliant,
the first one was never officially released, but it was widely bootlegged. Everybody'd heard it.
yeah,
Then I think in about, I can't remember, 76, 77, something like that, Virgin Records got hold of the original album and gave it an official release. And there was a weird kind of press conference around at Richard Branson's house. Pete and Dud were meant to be in the Bahamas or somewhere, and we had an audio link to them. I had a feeling they were upstairs in the bedroom,
yeah.
laughing their socks off at the hacks downstairs, thinking they were talking to them in some exotic location. And anyway, about a year later, there was a follow-up album, and I got to interview Cook again in person this time. I went to his house in West Hampstead, I think it was, and spent the afternoon with him and about 2 bottles of vodka.
Whoa. Okay.
As soon as I sat down, he opened a bottle of vodka, poured us 2 huge measures each, and he said, "Do try to keep up. I hate getting drunk on my own."
What did you make of him? In terms of as a human being, as a personality. He's kind of an iconic figure, isn't he? In a way.
Oh, he was just excuse me. He was just marvelous company for the 2 hours I was there. I mean, I just never stopped laughing.
Funny, yeah.
Oh, I mean, he was just godlike. I mean, I loved him as a writer, a performer. I mean, the TV shows that he did with Dad were spectacularly brilliant at the time. He was a huge influence on some things that I did, which didn't outside being a music fan. It was just a wonderful opportunity to meet somebody like that.
What did he say? Did he say much about Dudley Moore, about his relationship with him at all?
No, we didn't go into that. We were mostly concentrating on the record and some of the themes that had come up from the record, and the general reaction to it, the cries of outrage from critics who had started to accuse him of making money from not much more than absolute filth.
Yeah.
Because the records, if people haven't heard them, are incredibly obscene. I mean, they're so colourfully filthy.
So I was in school at the time. I remember we'd get round and listen to them, Yeah, and everyone's doing the impersonations, and
I guess so, yes.
But you can probably guess, how